proud to be sponsored by Diamond Bright, the car care products that have been keeping the furious fleet looking their best for a long time already. To find all you need to keep your car clean and protected, follow the link below to diamondbright.co.uk.
Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and this is a car I've been looking forward to driving for a very long time. The owner, Nitro Sylvia, on this here YouTube, has had it for a little while, and he's done an awful lot of work to bring this car from almost a barn find to something that is mechanically perfect. Now, why am I excited to see yet another Rover R8, a 400 in this case? Bear in mind, I've done lots of 200 R8s, I've done several 400 R8s, I've done a proper review of a 416, I've done a review of a 420 Tourer, I own a 420 GSi Tourer, which I've forgotten about and it's in a garage and I've not seen it in a while. But why am I so excited about yet another 420 GSi? Well, let's look around and take a look at the boot. Well, there might be a bit of a clue in the fact it's got a spoiler on it. It says 420 GSi, yeah, we know that. This tiny badge here, barely, it's about the size of my little pinky finger, says turbo on it. And that makes a huge difference. This car is very silly and I like it a lot. Let's take a look around. Well, open up the door and that smell of Roverness hits you. It's unique to the 1990s and 80s Rovers, just wafts out. It's all pretty standard R8 Rover fare. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff and detailed look around, then do hit the links I'm putting up in the top of the cards around now. We've got the other 400, we've got the 200. Yeah, lots of other Rovers. If you want to see more detailed descriptions of the cabin of these things, but bear in mind with this car we've got the Recaros with the half leather and the Silverstone fabric in them. We've got the leather gaiter, we've got the leather steering wheel. Of course we've got the wood in the doors and on the dashboard, and we've got the ultimate T-shelf. In this car we've also got the 150 mile an hour speedo, which is actually valid in this case. So here under the bonnet we've got a familiar sight in the form of the 2-litre T-Series engine. Now in my Rover 200 Coupe, which is a normally aspirated version of this, it's making 150 horsepower, and that feels rapid even as it is. With the addition of this T25 Turbo slung down here on the front and a few other bits and pieces I'll talk you through in a second, this is now making 200 horsepower. That makes it a bit of a giant killer. 0 to 60 on this car is about 6.5 seconds. Top speed is 146 in something that your granddad would drive. Well, it looks like it anyway. Now, keeping this thing running cool and properly and with peak power, there are a few extra bits you don't get on the standard car. First of all, obviously we do have the turbo down the front. This is running through an induction filter. I don't think that was standard. It has got a big intercooler sat here behind the radiator. In front of the radiator we've got a pair of big pusher fans running almost all the time to keep air flowing through there. And down the back of there we've got an oil cooler keeping the oil cool. James, the owner, has taken this engine completely to pieces pretty much, rebuilt everything so it's not got the usual T-Series dribbles of oil down the front, which is frankly amazing. The car is special for that in itself. But he's also powder coated lots of brackets, fitted some stainless pipes here and there. Basically the thing looks phenomenal. There's just one final thing to show you before we drive off, and this is this boot liner. I've only ever seen one of these one time before, and I was at the Pride of Longbridge show and the guy spent a long time hunting for it to get it into his car. This one came with the car, the hard plastic Rover Viking ship branded boot liner. What a unicorn item. I'd love to have one of these. So yeah, it made sense in the coupe, the Halo sports car, but in the old man spec saloon, that sort of does, because it gives you a real top of the range luxury car that people can aspire to. Maybe if someone's downsizing from a big Jaguar, they can come down to a 2-litre turbocharged saloon like this. That kind of makes sense, but on the whole, most of the people buying the 420 were older chaps who wouldn't necessarily want the Silverstone fabric hard sports seats. They want the comfy leather seats. They want the ambience of a gentleman's club, not a cockpit of a racing car. That looks nice. So obviously they weren't huge sellers, but the people that knew about them loved them. It was very much the ultimate Q car. Manchester Police, for example, had a grey one of these things, which was brilliant because who's going to suspect the Uncle Derek's grey 420 Rover is actually a police car, let alone one that can outrun a Sapphire Cosworth. The thing with this car is the performance is just completely unrelated to its appearance. I mean, it's a good looking car, but it's not an exciting looking car. This car has got the Cosmos alloys off a BRM rather than the standard wheel trims, which make it look even more undercover, even less like something that can do 150 miles an hour. But in its day, this thing would just run rings about virtually everything. The standard 2-litre normally aspirated car did 0 to 60 in 8.4 seconds, 127 miles an hour. You can knock 2 seconds off that 0 to 60 and add 20 to the top end on that. That's just nuts. And all in a package which will be quite at home driving to church on Sunday. Or more accurately, popping to Sainsbury's for the Thursday morning saver menu in their cafe. And I say this as a devout Rover lover. There is something about this car, the way it pulls, that makes you want to drive like a hooligan all of the time. Even though it's the kind of car you really shouldn't be driving like a hooligan, you should be being far more sensible. The power delivery is just immense. It's not like turbos of just a few years previously where you hit the accelerator and wait and suddenly it throws you sideways through a hedge. It's far more instantaneous than that. And to demonstrate, it just goes. There's loads of torque, loads of power. The thing is incredible. The steering is typical Rover R8 light. That lovely connected fluid feel, it just moves, it swims like a fish. The gear change on a good one is really good. That is an R8 problem, as they do tend to wear their gear linkages and go a bit floppy. This one though is pretty good. The major downfall of these cars though is the brakes are absolutely shocking, and there's not a lot you can really do about that. The suspension on these cars was already a little bit tightened up anyway, so you really do feel the benefit of that. You can lower it some more, but to be honest, it drives well enough you don't really need to. Oh, this car is blistering. Hit 60 in third gear, it's mad. But all the time you're doing those kind of crazy speeds, you're in typical Rover luxury. We've got our wooden dashboard, we've got our epic T-shelf, we've got a decent radio cassette player with like 4 speakers around, which was good going back in those days. You've got the leather steering wheel as well. No airbag, of course, at this stage. Everything just feels really nice to touch. We've even got cassette holders down here in front of the gear stick. Little leather topped armrest with a nice big cubby hole in it. We've even got an electric sunroof. The button is down here, which on the convertible would be the convertible electric roof switch. They really did feel so much better than their rivals from Ford and Vauxhall. Okay, this is silly how fast it is. I've always said I was never going to turbocharge my Rover 220 Coupe because, you know, it's not original and it's good as a non-turbo. It's more practical. This hasn't got the torque steer I was expecting because I've always been vaguely aware that there is horrific torque steer with the 220 turbos. I'm not really feeling that, and I'm booting this pretty hard. Bit of judder through the wheel as you accelerate really hard, but not the torque steer I was expecting. This is fantastic. I now need to go and find a 2-litre turbo setup for my coupe because this is so good. Oh my word, this is amazing. I love that sound of the turbo dump. You do want to just lift off all the time just to get that. I love the fact it's still got little touches like the Rover fresh air vent to blow cold air through the middle ventilation. Makes it nice and comfortable on a warm day, despite the fact there's no air conditioning on this car. When you're driving normally at low speeds, just pulling away gently with traffic, apart from the extra kind of Darth Vader sound effects from the front, it does feel very normal. It's only when you really boot it that the car completely goes Jekyll and Hyde on you, and it reveals this insane personality that just that little extra sound effect from the front was hinting at before suddenly comes to the front and you know about it. Now, these things are astonishingly rare. James has done a bit of checking, who owns this car. He thinks there are about 7 left on the road, which is just criminally small numbers. But then it's not the obvious choice at the time when it was new. It's not your typical Rover buyer's first choice. They wanted the comfortable, slower 1.4, 1.6, not the 2 litre, not the turbocharged. But, you know, as these have become retro interesting, suddenly this is the one you really, really, really want, and it's obviously the most valuable by a long way. Well, that's all very much a relative term, because the most valuable one of these is still £4,000 or £5,000, as opposed to, say, a 911 from the same year, which would be £40,000 or £50,000. Or probably a lot more, actually, thinking about it. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this ride out in this truly amazing Rover 420 GSi Turbo. It is just an absolute hooligan of a car in a tweed jacket, basically. It's mad and brilliant. It's another car which is just so unexpected and so cool, and I want one, or I want my coupe to be like this. So good. If you've enjoyed, please, as always, like and subscribe, and check out some of my previous videos about Rovers, because they're not all like this, you know. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon driving something completely different.